Hello and welcome to Frank Fridays. My name is Carlina and I'm the founder of Art Frankly. You all know my co-host, Ellie Hayworth of Hayworth Consultancy. And today we're chatting with Elizabeth Larison, the Director of Operations at apexart. Ellie, I'll let you get this interview started.
Thank you, Carlina and Elizabeth. It's really great to speak with you today.
Thank you. It's great to be here, and thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely. Well, I think we can go ahead and just dive right in. I'd love to hear a little bit about just how you got involved in the arts. Maybe you can give us kind of a brief synopsis of your career and what brought you to Apex.
Sure. I've long been interested in the arts, first through making, and then I think I really got involved in the field when I applied first for a residency at Flux Factory, and then later became more involved with their actual operations and involvement. The reason I was drawn to them is they were one of the first arts nonprofits that I had learned about. I was looking for places in Queens, some places I could kind of get involved with. I'd been very intimidated by commercial galleries, which seemed very closed off and kind of unfriendly to, outsiders like me. So getting involved with that particular organization first as a resident, and then getting involved with small things like bookkeeping or administration or helping run their residency program. That's what really kind of got me working or thinking more in a professional sense about how I could be involved in the art world.
Yeah, I love that. Well, now you are the Director of Ops at apexart. Maybe you can tell our viewers just a little bit about what your kind of day-to-day looks like and what some of the roles and responsibilities are encompassed by that title.
Yeah, day-to-day can change so much because I do wear a lot of hats here, as do all of my teammates. We're a small organization. We're 5 staff members overseeing international and New York City programs. But I guess I'll start with some of my roles and then I'll do day-to-day if that works.
Sure.
My roles encompass fundraising, grant reporting, HR, payroll, financial management, bookkeeping, and then on the program side, I am very involved with the exhibitions here. I oversee everything from scheduling, creating agreements, providing editorial and curatorial support, making sure that their budgets kind of match the sort of logistical goals that they have in terms of production. And yeah, lots of proofreading everywhere also, but that largely encapsulates sort of the types of responsibilities I have. So on a day-to-day basis, things can change so much. We have exhibitions in New York City and around the world. So keeping tabs on where production is for a lot of those is always on the top of my list. But yeah, basically I should say I start the day with a list. That's probably the most consistent thing that I can say that I do. And work from the list based on priorities and urgency. And of course, the list gets, amended several times throughout the day based on things that come up. But yeah, that's a very vague sneak peek into my life, but or my work here. But things just change all the time. There might be, if it's a grant period, that's something to consider. And always knowing what exhibitions are coming up and other sort of reporting needs that we might have.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think in addition to kind of the wider scope of responsibilities that you've outlined, I always say the art world kind of at its core is a logistics game. And so the Director of Ops, I think, is really kind of the gatekeeper of all of those logistical needs that make an operation run seamlessly. So I think you certainly have your hand in quite a bit in the best way possible.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's definitely, it's never boring. It is always very busy, and always the challenges sort of represent themselves in new ways all of the time. So it requires a lot of creative thinking and efficiency and balance.
I love that. Well, for the viewers who maybe are less familiar with Apex, you've touched on a number of these different tenets that comprise the organization, but maybe you can just speak in kind of a broader sense about the mission and the vision of Apex. You guys have a fellowship program, you have public programming, exhibitions. Tell us a little bit about the resources that you offer to artists and curators.
Absolutely. So our programming including our exhibitions, fellowships, public programs, and publishing, are all united by our mission of challenging set ideas about art, culture, curation, and so forth. How we apply it focuses on a few key things which show up in our programs and how we approach them. One of those things is expanding participation. That means creating opportunities both for curators and artists, but also kind of changing, also providing opportunity about who gets to have a say in what ideas are worth pursuing in the art. That really comes through in our open call program, where we invite anybody who wants to be involved to be a juror and have a say in what that program is, or what exhibitions become part of our season. So sort of like decentralizing participation in the art world is one key thing that we do. We also put an emphasis on ideas and creativity rather than promotion or kind of keeping up with what's cool in the art world. And three, another important thing that we kind of enact in our programs is institutional critique. And that's something that is not like an official part of our mission per se, but that's sort of my own interpretation about what we do. Our exhibition program is founded largely in response to what was at one time a dearth of opportunities or a dearth of fair opportunities in the arts. There are plenty of open calls out there. We are clearly one of, thousands. But what makes ours unique is, one, some of the modes that we accept proposals. One is that there are no images accepted. It's just a 500-word proposal, an idea-based proposal for a group exhibition. And we, of course, open up who it can be involved, not just in the proposing, but in the review. So unlike, say, a lot of open calls that are maybe based in a certain arts-rich city, we don't have a small table of like arts professionals like reviewing all the proposals. We have a juror pool that is largely reflective of the submitter pool. So there's certain considerations of like cultural and aesthetic histories that they might bring to the table that, a small group of like New York-based curators can't. So, and also with our fellowship program, we enact this by responding by and large to the standard artist residency. So when you think of artist residencies, it's an opportunity for artists to maybe focus on some of their work or present their work. There can be, if you've had some measure of success as an artist and you're kind of going, on one of these retreats or, residencies, there's an extreme amount of pressure to sort of present something within a continuous narrative or trajectory of your current practice, like how it presents itself. It doesn't always present itself as a place to experiment and totally go out of the box. So with our fellowship program, fellows travel alone to some place they've never been. It's a sort of, singleton kind of residency program where there's not a group of people around that are part of the program as well. And rather than have the artist make new work during the opportunity, they agree not to make any work and they agree not to promote themselves. And we give them a very robust schedule of activities that take them out of their familiar kind of comfort zones. So for example, we have people coming to New York from all around the world and across the country. And in a given week, they will be volunteering, going to a therapy session, doing some cultural things, like maybe going to see a ballet or take a Tai Chi class or what have you. But the whole idea is that they're kind of immersing themselves in a new place with seeing tons of new things, meeting tons of people, but not in a promotional sense, so that when they return home, they've had this time to reflect and engage with lots of new things and provide them with tools and resources that they can then bring into their practice. So, between the fellowship program being so kind of unorthodox in its sort of resource provision for artists, and with this open call being very sort of operating on different rules. That's what I mean, I guess, by the institutional critique part, where we sort of enact alternatives. Not to say that, there's any one perfect way that any arts program should be done, but I think it's important that they don't all do the same thing. And I think that's something that we do really well, is provide, new avenues to explore familiar challenges, I think, in creative practice.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Elizabeth.
I was going to touch on two other small things that we do, or smaller programs that we do. Obviously, the fellowship and the exhibitions are the main the largest programs that we have. Our publishing program really just focuses on trying to examine critical things in contemporary art. So we've had exhibitions or books on curating, our own fellowship program, and so on and so forth. But our main tenet there is to make sure that essays are always accessible and like legible by a general, non-specialized audience, because you can have really complex ideas, but they don't always have to be in art speak, so to speak.
Sure,
absolutely. And then we have a smaller program now also reaching out to high schools, basically kind of giving them an introduction to the fellowship ethos, this idea that you can be an artist and kind of bring an artist's perspective to things, to life. How do you bring creativity into everyday life? How do you bring creative perspective into everyday life? So we have one of my colleague here, our director of public programs, runs that program and tries to challenge high school students with some of their conceptions about what an artist is, what an artist does, and how an artist kind of engages.
I love that. Well, I certainly can respect the kind of dynamism that the organization has undertaken. And I do appreciate very much that, you know, there's this idea of kind of breaking down dogmas and therefore also being encompassing in what resources you're offering. So it sounds like certainly the Art Frankly audience would benefit from becoming more familiar with Apex and all of its resources, whether you're an artist, curator, or, you know, just a connoisseur or even an art curious, you know, kind of viewer.
Absolutely. So, yeah, that's one of the things I think we do quite well is making sure that however people are engaged with what they do with us, that they kind of, they have support. So if you win an open call proposal and you've never curated before, maybe you're like an anthropologist or a historian or something, you have the resources and the support of an entire team here who will help instruct and give that feedback. Though we work with professional established curators as well, people who for this is like not their first rodeo, so to speak.
Sure.
So yeah, wherever people kind of come in, particularly in the exhibition programs, that is really the best way to kind of jump in and get involved if you want to be a juror or submit something. But yeah, that's the resources and the gifts I think that my team members are really good at providing to people that we work with.
Well, Elizabeth, it sounds to me like you're quite privy to a lot of the nuance, whether it's in the experience of being in the art world or it's on the side of being an institution that's obviously providing resources. I'm curious, what word of advice or kind of words of advice would you offer to young talent trying to come into the art world and distinguish themselves?
I don't know how great I am or how qualified I am to answer this, because I feel like, you know, I don't even know how I even got here sometimes, but you know, I think knowing what your goals are and knowing what you want and knowing what parts of the art world they are interesting to you. I think because there are so many different, you know, genres of art world out there and the different ways that people are sharing and engaging with that sort of creative output, creative process. So you know, knowing that I think is the first part, and then just, you know, making yourself part of that community, whether it means showing up, meeting people and trying to, understand where your contributions can be within established systems, or if you can't see that, then creating your own and kind of establishing what's going to be set and different about it. And
yeah, I think that's great advice. I'm also just curious personally, when it sounds to me like you have your hands quite full with Apex, but when you're not involved with Apex, how are you staying involved with the arts? What are some of the things that really kind of you gravitate towards or that really make you excited about the art world?
That's a great question, and embarrassingly a challenge. You know, I work
Sure.
These hours Tuesday to Saturday, so I'm, you know, when I'm getting engaged with the art world, it's usually on Mondays or you know, weekday evenings. But trying to keep tabs on certain conversations that are happening, following you know, media and articles and essays about certain creative issues that are coming up in the fields. Yeah, I don't really have like a set regimen. I just, you know, kind of always keep my eyes open, try to see what my colleagues are dealing with, you know, whether it's, I don't know, issues about how to keep an organization open during the pandemic, or like what, you know, certain protocols. I'll just, trying to be aware of what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there a kind of major career milestone or a project that you're particularly proud of that you'd love the Art Frankly viewers to resonate with?
Yeah, I mean, I know I spoke about this last time or in my last interview with Art Franklin, and it still is such a meaningful thing, but so I'll just speak about it briefly.
Of
It's
course.
the fact that one of our open call winners in 2019, 2020 was a project to take place in Tehran. And this was something that even when we saw it kind of come up through the ranks, we asked ourselves, can we support this exhibition, like legally speaking, because we couldn't, at the time, there's an organization in the government called the, I think, Operations and Foreign Assets Control or something like that, which, means you can't send money to Iran. And anyway, but yeah, long story short, despite lots of outreach, trying to work and try to find organizations that worked with Iranian artists, tried to find Iranian artists and curators who are based in the States, trying to see what they, use to get around this. None of that research was really helpful. And so in the end, we just had to, apply for an exemption. And it took so many months and so much unknowns, but it did happen. And it was such a meaningful thing to be able to work with curators in Iran, artists in Iran who feel so, I don't know, there's a huge barrier to them getting to do their projects and to get support for their projects. And so, yeah, that still is one of my proudest moments, I think, in my job and my work here with Apex in particular too, is like finding a way, because you really gotta, there's so many ways in which we have to be creative and thoughtful in what we do in this field, but there's also just something to be said about just like the brute force model. Like you just got to figure out how to do it. You gotta really just be creative and figure it out. And I did it there. So that's like and
it takes resilience of character as well, because when you keep getting the doors closed in your face 15 times than the other, it just takes having that little kind of inkling of faith that there will be a light at the end of the tunnel. So I very much respect that you guys came out and were able to actually accomplish the project.
Thank you. Yeah, it meant a lot to all of us.
Yeah, that's really great. Well, I think one kind of concluding note that we always like to end on is a forward-looking note. And I'm curious to know, are there any milestones, whether professional or personal, opportunities or moments that you're really pursuing or striving for in the year ahead?
Nothing. I mean, right now, the focus is always just continuing these programs. For this, we have this is a challenging year because we're still incorporating exhibitions that had to be postponed from the pandemic. So that makes a busier schedule, and also there's a lot that we learned in the past 2 years, particularly with the pandemic, and things that we're trying to incorporate now that build upon what we were doing before. So in many ways, we're doing more now than we did even pre-pandemic. So making sure that we're making the best of these opportunities and the time that we have to use these new skills to continue to, share the messages that are within the exhibitions, which are the messages that are, have been selected by our jurors. And so I mean, we have, just to give you a little example, we currently have an exhibition up now at apexart in New York City, which is up through March 12th, called Oh, I Love Brazilian Women. It's curated by Luisa Testa. As you can tell by the sarcasm in the title, it's an exhibition that wishes to kind of get rid of these sort of hypersexualized associations with Brazilian womanhood. So we have 12 Brazilian women artists in the show, sort of defying the stereotypes that are around that. In Kaduna, Nigeria right now is an exhibition called Arewa Me Too, curated by Favor Rutaro. This exhibition is looking at the diminished status of women in this particular region in northern Nigeria, bringing the Me Too movement up into this part of the world where there's just so much which goes unspoken about women's rights and expectations in society. And then at the beginning of March, we'll be opening a show in Hong Kong called Ownness, curated by Virginia Liu and Mizuho Yamazaki, also focused on feminist issues as they pertain to women throughout East Asia, how the combined discriminations, both just from regional patriarchies, but also colonial histories and Western sort of expectations upon, the Asian female kind of stereotype there. So this exhibition will be speaking to that as well. So we have a lot of feminist themed exhibitions right now, but super important, as you know, to highlight the different nuanced issues as they come up around the globe relating to this, because feminism is no one thing, of course. And yeah, this block of exhibitions this season really demonstrates that, which is cool.
That is very exciting. Well, we certainly will use the Art Frankly platform as a way to continue to support Apex and to continue to support your work. And I think it's really exciting just to hear, what you guys have been promoting and working on in the past, really since the advent of Apex. You guys were founded in, was it 2004?
1994.
1994.
Yep.
I was a decade off.
Yep. Yeah. We'll have a big birthday in a couple of years, our 30th. Right now we're in our 28th year. And we're fortunate to have our founder and executive director still be on the team. That's Stephen Rand, who, as you can probably sense, was dissatisfied with a lot that was going on in the art world, and so tried to create an organization that could respond to it. So yeah.
It's really exciting. Well, we look forward to continuing to support you guys, and we just very much appreciate the time that you've taken today to tell us a little bit about you and also Apex.
Happy to do so. Thanks again for the invitation.